All right. Hello. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Hello. Are we ready to navigate a new world with new thought wisdom? Yeah. When we put this on the calendar, we didn't know all that would be coming. And what a week, huh? So this is a living room style. And so we will be taking questions, and Jessica will be the mic runner. So when the time comes, you just kind of put your hand up. I will be having Jessica run to you, okay? And we don't want to go into backstories or anything like that, but we are, living room style. And I want to thank Seth on sound. We want to thank Tim on camera, Rev Deb, and everybody that's moving in more chairs. Thank you very much, guys. And the gals at the front, Elaine, Nicole, Brenda, and Jessica. So I want to thank all of them. Good. And so tonight we have 4 pillar ministers, reverends in the movement. They have been around for a long, long time. They are great friends, all in San Diego. Dr. Kathy Hearn is, been in the movement. She leads the Spiritual Leadership School. She is the dean of the School of Spiritual Leadership, San Diego. We have Rev. Dr. Guy Williams, who we like to call the philosopher, so, point him out. He is from Fallbrook, Hilltop Spiritual Center. We have Rev. Kevin Bucy in Mission Valley with the Universal Spirit Center, and then we have Reverend Dr. Christian Sorensen with Seaside Center. So I would like to welcome all of you to Seaside Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Terah Short. I am the Education and Special Events Director here. And without further ado, let's call our guest of honors out. Come on out. This is Reverend Christian Sorensen with Seaside. Dr. Kathy Hearn, School of Spiritual Leadership, Rev. Kevin Bucy with I've got you wrong, Universal Spirits, and Rev. Guy Williams with Hilltop in Fallbrook. Thank you all.
I feel so important suddenly. Wow.
So who can I get to pray us in tonight?
The one who feels important.
Okay.
You said it, man.
All right, let's do this. So I'm going to invite you all to take a deep breath in. Go ahead, if you'd like to close your eyes and breathe into your heart. Breathe into your heart. Just let go of all that it took to get here to this point. Come into the full awareness of this divine unfolding presence that is moving through each one of us, always at every moment, and here now, and is moving through us as a gathered community. So what I know is this unfolding divine presence, this infinite love, meets us right where we're at and calls us to greater expansion, greater evolution. For each one of us, for us as gathered community. And let's know that we leave here tonight more enlightened, more clear, more inspired to touch all of those who we come in contact with. Let's know a blessing on our nation and on our planet as we say together. And so it is. Amen.
All right, so welcome. I'm going to start with the first couple of questions, but at any time you raise your hands. And Jessica, do we have you ready? Jessica is ready on the mic. Okay. So from your perspective, what does it mean to navigate a changing world in New Thought Wisdom? Who would like to start?
Well, I guess I'm not going to let too much space get in there. First, I want to say thank you for Terah for pulling us all in here this evening. This was her brainchild and reached out to all these ministers to bring us together and create this living room setting. And so it's like we're just hanging out together. The only thing we didn't provide was the Chardonnay and Brie. So please excuse us on that one. But anyway, I think it is really about being able to remain centered as we are navigating this world. I think in this high-tech, low-touch time in our life, there are so many new dynamics and changes going on in this world. It becomes our laboratory, this changing times, for us to continue to remember to do our spiritual practices. I think these changing times are calling us to remember that there's something inside of us, and that the dynamics that are going on that begin to stir our soul, that make us want to get angry and riled up, is just a call for us to remember that there's something inside of us that is greater than what's going on in this world. And so actually what's taking place on a planetary level is a divine curriculum for humanity to unite in something deeper than the concerns, the monetary or the war, or all those things. There's a spirit that is seeking to unite us as brothers and sisters across this planet. And so I think navigating these changing times, we're being called in the midst of the chaos to turn within, to remember to turn within, for there is no large or small in the presence of God. And so I think that's a starting point.
I would like that. I like that. I have to ask, was that hard to sit down and do that?
Did Christian read?
Well, that was
Did Christian read the questions before? Did he know the?
He did not. He did not have the questions.
Whoa,
No.
okay. Go, Christian.
Would you like to add to that?
Am I on?
You are.
Yes. That pretty much said it, so let's go. Thank you for that. You know, when I think about standing in the world as new thought, it is for me about having a creative response to what's going on. And for me, it's really important to bear witness to what's happening. I do watch the news. I try to keep track of what's happening and to see it for what it is, because it's now, and we are part of the unfoldment here. And I find it really important to monitor my own reactions and to understand where they're coming from. And usually they're from a very old place, something old in the past that's being triggered for me in some way. And I know that for me, the science of mind and New Thought is all about maintaining our awareness of the reality of spirit. And I love our sign over here that thought is creation. And so what are the thoughts that we're putting out into the world? And we stand in a powerful place to make a tremendous difference right now. We are called here for a time such as this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Kathy.
So what they both said, and also I think it's a little bit what I've been so aware of for my own life and my community in the world is there is at every moment in every space, there is a divine unfolding that's happening. And that's what our teachings tell us. It's just true. There's a divine unfolding. And when I lose sight of that, when I'm not in touch with myself or my own spiritual practice, when I'm not in relationship with stillness, then I lose that sense. And I might get into my head or drama and my own issues come up. But when I can spend time with what is wanting to evolve through me, then I can be present to what's wanting to evolve through the world and unfold. And I think what we're being called to as witnesses of spiritual practice is to be so present to what's wanting to happen through us that it anchors us in the moment and kind of keeps us, or I'll speak for myself, kind of keeps me from the drama.
Yep.
When I can be that in touch with the stillness within myself.
Thank you. Thank you, Rev. Kevin.
So probably like, am I on?
You are.
Okay. So probably like most of you, I've been thinking a lot about St. Augustine. Right?
The philosopher, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rev. Dr. Guy Williams.
and I say that because, Augustine was a visionary in many ways, but he was also witnessing the end of an empire and a civilization. And he was trying to figure out, how does one navigate when we see something that is ending? And I say that because, when we study evolution, when we just study nature, we see that there's kind of a pattern. There's an order, there's a disorder, and there's a reorder. And they don't happen instantly. They take time. And being someone who was a child of the hippies, child of the 60s and a bit of a hippie.
And of the child of the hippie.
And a child of a hippie, and a child still, and kind of a hippie. You know what, I remember thinking, gosh, you know, when I'm 40, which was a while ago, we're going to have it together. And it didn't happen. In fact, by appearances, it looks worse. And to witness that there is an evolutionary process that appears to look like disorder is in many ways a natural progression of things. And we can't make it go away. It has to happen. And I think for myself, how I sit with this is the things that give me hope. One is that me or we as a species are not in control, and that the future is unknown. Because if I think differently than that, then I get really, really nervous. I've been reading a book lately that is kind of shifting me, maybe even radicalizing me as I'm kind of looking at all this. It's a book called Against the Machine by Paul Kingsnorth. Interesting book. But he talks about 4 Ps. And I'm the last person that wants to give 5 steps to this or 4 easy answers to that. But I've been meditating on these 4 Ps, and they are people, place, prayer, and past. And in many ways, I think how I am looking at how we navigate through these changing times, I'm asking myself, how can I simplify and how can I get smaller as opposed to bigger? Meaning, how do I really focus on the people that are in my immediate life that matter to me? And how do I look at where I live and my community as really where I give my vision, my energy, my love? How do I pray? And how do I look at that prayer as a way of engagement with the transcendent? And then the past, you know, there's a continuity about who we were and what it means to be human, what it means to be a citizen of the planet, what it means to be connected to these things. Because I think in many ways, the danger that we live in today is the algorithms and the processes and all the distractions that keep us from connecting to the people, that make us think that the place that we're in is we should be someplace else, and that something other than prayer titillates us, and the abolition or the rewriting of the past. So that's my cheery thought for these.
Thank you, Rev Guy. Just a fair warning, I took metaphysical Bible studies with Rev Dr. Guy Williams, and 20 books later in 2 days, so be careful how many books you order from his conversations.
Well, Guy, I've been reading a book really just this week, and one I'm sure you're aware of, The Epic of Gilgamesh. And that is the first literary piece upon this planet that we have. And what's fascinating is it's telling the same stories that we're living here today. So this was 5,000 years ago, and yet he was talking about the friendships and how important that is. And with the friendships, we can take on the challenges in the world and the path, and they're in search of immortality and that sense of their values and integrity. And so I think the lessons that were coming and birthing themselves in humanity at 3000 BC are the same things that are seeking to birth themselves now in this path that you're talking about, one that the Hobbit and Gandalf all went on. That path it's intended to have the challenges because it stretches us, it makes us dig down deeper, and we come back to where we started, but not the same. And so 5,000 years ago, we're still looking for the friendship, but this time they're across the planet, or they're in the midst of chaos, but there's something there that is to be found, and only those that are willing to go on the path and face the dragons are the ones that are going to be able to lift us as a total species, I think.
I think so too, and I think that's the importance of engaging in the past, of studying the myths and the legends, and whatever sacred scripture, whatever that means to whoever, but because they tell the story of the human situation and the evolution of our consciousness. Absolutely.
Right, it's the hero's journey, right? It's the person, and we're all on the hero's journey, right? We set on a path. we set on a path for an awakening, a gift, the Hobbit's the ring, whatever that is. And then we come back to the community and we share that gift to the community. That's like in our DNA. It's a story that says from the beginning of time.
What's so valuable is everybody is essential because they bring back a piece for the totality that is emerging, that is the picture that is becoming clearer. But everyone, no matter who we are on our path, is an integral piece of the tapestry.
And I think with that, because you were talking about the Hobbit, and I would say if I was to say that I have one sacred scripture, it would be the Legendarium of Tolkien.
Sorry, say that again? And hold the mic closer?
The Legendarium of J.R. Tolkien, and of which the Lord of the Rings is an aspect of that. and probably one of the most profound things is Sam and Frodo as they're walking through Mordor, and the conversations they're having about the people that matter and their home, and the simple things like a good cup of ale and a pipe and a fine meal. Because at the end of the day, those are the most significant things. Those are the most sacramental things. Those are the things I think that cause us to be human.
And going back to Gilgamesh, he had Enkidu, just his same buddy, talking about whatever it was they were drinking and who they were hitting on, and the same story.
Yeah.
5,000 years ago.
Right, yeah.
So there's this part in The Hobbit I love where Bilbo and Sam are starting to go off, Frodo and Sam are starting to go off on their journey, right? And at one point, Sam stops. They're leaving the Shire, and Sam stops, and Frodo's going and turns back to Sam and he said, "Why did you stop?" And Sam says, "Because if I take one more step, this will be the farthest I've ever been away from home." Right. Yeah. And it's like, that's the stretch.
So I think what's happening on the planet is we have gotten to the edge that we have, the farthest we have ever gone as a planetary species, as in terms of connection, in terms of consciousness. And we are like Sam, coming to that edge and saying, this is the farthest, this consciousness has taken humanity, and we have all that previous stuff that has brought us to this point.
Okay, I want to jump in here.
Please.
Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Kathy Hearn.
My brothers.
Yeah, I'm the outsider here. These three were going together long before I ever showed up in town.
And I have not read all of these books. Gilgamesh I have read, though, from past studies, yes.
Dr. Kathy, real close to your mouth.
Oh, yes, sorry. So who I've been reading recently is an abstract of a conversation that Thomas Hubble was having recently. Terah had turned me on to it. And a couple of the things that he said was, first of all, that the ancient wisdom traditions say that the people who are alive in a generation have the wisdom required for the time.
Yeah.
So I find that a really hopeful and wonderful statement. And then he talks about looking at noticing what calls you. Because I think there's something in that is the intelligence of the universe and the need of the time that's working through each and every one of us. So to look carefully at what calls you and to know that there's a wisdom in that. And that as you begin to answer the call and follow it, it puts you on a wonderful journey. And you don't know exactly where it's going, but chances are it's an answer to some of the problems of the time.
Absolutely, thank you.
And wait, there was something else. And he also talks about digesting our past. He's a specialist in collective trauma, and so I hear something about that there, that we want to make sure that we're doing our own healing work so that as we answer the call, so that we're free to answer the call and to go into what's new and what's unknown. And he says that the call is the echo of your arrival. The fact that you're being called is a promise of the arrival that you're about to make. I know the poet David White talks about how when there's something, a place that we long to reach, that a part of us already stands there in fulfillment and looks back at us and says, walk this way. And so I think there are echoes of that here in this conversation.
Nice.
I like that. Thank you very much, Dr. Kathy. So
guys.
I'm going to jump all over the place.
Hey,
what are
and you guys have questions out there?
Yeah, are there any questions out here yet? Yep, we've got one. Go ahead, Jess. If you want to stand up.
Oh, sure. Hello, my favorite people. My question is, how can we stand in our spiritual truth? And hello, everyone, all these lovely people. How can I stand in spiritual truth and also balance what is mine to like social action? So for me, I've actually been thinking kind of like Gandhi, like how he really grounded in spiritual truth, but he was very socially active and committed to creating the world that he envisioned. So where is it for us today? How can we stay grounded, and what are some things that could be real practical in how we engage in that action part? Because I've heard us talking about the truth part, the spiritual internal practice. What's the external?
So I want to jump on that. There was a poet, not a poet, he's not a poet at all, a man by the name of Peter Block, and I was attending a lecture that he was doing, and people kept asking how questions. How do we do this? And he said the answer to a how question is in the question itself. So whenever you say how do we, and then the rest of it is there, that's what you do. And I appreciate Sarah's deeper question of what are the ways that I can do this? What are the ways that I can do this? And I think you ask that and you find the way, because it's going to be individual for each and every one of us in the way how we answer the question of how we're going to accomplish what we want to do.
And you said this a little bit ago, Kathy. It's about the call. Each of us is called, but we can't hear the call unless we get still and quiet and get in touch with ourselves. But each of us is called to something. Called forward. That step forward. That step from what's familiar or our comfort zones into some other place. And I don't think anyone's calls are. We're all unique. We all are being called uniquely forward. So how I'm called is different than how you're called. But then the other thing too, right? We're called also as community. And we're called as a movement. And I just want to say this because it's on my mind, and I was talking to my board president about this today. She was saying, how come we've got such a powerful message? A New Thought has such a powerful message. How come we don't fill our centers like the mega churches do on Sunday morning, right? How come we don't? And it's like, we're on the cutting edge, and the masses are not on the cutting edge. Right, we aren't. But it's those people that first go forth and kind of pave the way, right? That find the call within themselves and within the community. And we're not attached to guilt or to shame or to dogma. We're going out to new places. And it's a few people first that lead the way for the rest. And I really think that's who we are as spiritual community.
That's great.
So again, let me bring my joyful answer to this as well. I think first of all, it's a powerful question. It's one that I struggle with personally, and I think I would go two directions. One is I think spiritual practice, spiritual truth, call it what you want, and social action are two distinct things, and I think we run I run a temptation if I collapse the two as one. And I say that because, I part of my morning practice used to be on Sunday morning. I would get up and I have my whole ritual that I do, and as I'm getting ready to sort of, get in the shower and get dressed, I'll open up the newspaper to see, what's happening, and it got to the point where it was like, good gracious, every Sunday morning I want to throw up. There's a gun shooting, or there's this happening, or there's an invasion of that, or there's another aspect of a genocide, or whatever is going on. And it's like, and then I've got to go stand in front of my community and speak about this, and it's raw and it's troubling, and I think two things on that. One is, as a minister, my calling, my vocation, is not to speak to the world, but to speak of God, and then let that work its way with other people. and to respond to something that Kevin said, and with all due respect, I'm not convinced that we as a teaching are on the cutting edge, because our focus is so much on the self, as opposed to being part of something greater than the self, being part of something called a species, a planet. Call it what you want. And I think there's something that I'm sitting with is, I think that even before we as a species articulated language, we had religion. And it showed up in trance, in medicine, in dance, in song, and all of these things. And we see evidence of religion as a way that when we as a species were growing bigger than our family unit, that we could live together without killing each other. And so I think that, our idea of spiritual truth, which Plato would say is about recollection or remembering, is our practice. And each of us then answers a call about how we respond to what is happening in the world. Yeah.
Nice, guys. That is different spirituality and the social activism. That's huge because, while I'm leaning one direction pretty heavy, and I'm running out half the people out of Seaside. And then I start leaning the other direction. I run the other half out of Seaside, and this place emptied out pretty good there about a while back. And it's taken a while for me to get back to what it is. What is the spiritual truth here in this situation? And with that said, Sarah, I tell people, if you feel like marching, you march. That's the call you're speaking about. You march, and others are going to be marching on this perspective, and these marches clash. And that is part of the dynamics that is moving our culture and our collective consciousness as a humanity forward, is running up against each other, because sometimes the debate between two people is not welcomed. It takes, in these times, a mass collective consciousness, a Goliath to reach another Goliath. And God's just sitting back and going to say, hey, I'm going to have a good time, see what happens here with all this. And so I think in our world, we have those, as you were saying, who are called to march in this area. I like to say we have the warrior class, those that do the war in this world, and we've got those that are to pray for peace. And what we need to do is be in integrity to what it is ours to do here at this time. And together as 8 billion people, we are moving humanity in a forward distance. We have come to that edge that Sam was speaking about. And it's because all of us are doing our parts and we're not falling apart. We are coming together. We have never seen a planet go through a birth like this. And as Barbara Marx Hubbard would say, birth is a messy kind of thing. This is what it looks like. I've been praying. I know you guys have been praying. All sides of the religions are praying. This has got to be the answer to prayer. It sure doesn't look like what I would have set up. But I have got to know that in the midst of it, the presence of God is. It is not absence. It is omnipresence. So my responsibility as the spiritual leader, not to take this side or that side, but to point out this is where God is in the midst of 9/11 or in the midst of Iraq or in the midst of these marches or whatever. There is as much God here as anywhere else. And as that spiritual leader, I empower all to go to march and what they're to do, but also it's my job to say, this is where Spirit is.
Yes,
Nice.
I agree. And again, going back to whether it be Tolkien or Nietzsche or anybody, but the challenge, maybe the danger, it's kind of like the Palantir, right? If you stare at the Palantir long enough, it draws you in. If you are looking so deeply at the things that are happening that are just overwhelmingly horrible, then it begins to affect our consciousness. And so, again, we become centers that, oh my goodness gracious, Monday through Friday, we are trying to figure out how to work in the world and organize our families and floss our teeth and all the things that need to happen. And Sunday, as a community, we come together and see the divine in each other. to me, when I look at more and more how the teachings of Jesus are so compelling, it is in essence the most sacramental thing we can do is set a table where everyone is invited. Everyone is invited. And that means, everybody.
But that's not okay with the media. Their job is to split us, it seems like.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Guy, what is the Palantir?
The Palantir is, first of all, it's a terrible thing that Peter Thiel has created, and he's desecrating what it is. So in the stories of Tolkien, at the very beginning, there were these stones that were created, and they were called the Palantirs. And one could look at one and communicate with anybody around that had one. But then they were absconded, kind of like the internet. Because it was a device in which we could be in the Gobi Desert and read Shakespeare, or whatever the case may be. And then it got co-opted by Sauron. And the more we stare at it, the more it simply reflects back, and we become enslaved to it.
That is so clear analogy of what's going on. We're fed to look at the negative and look how bad things are, but we're in a beautiful time on this planet. The good is going on all over the place, and yet the Palantir is just sucking our awareness into negative and the horrendous chaos, but there's so much good. Why aren't we looking in that direction? And I think as spiritual leaders, as lighthouses, we're here to cast that light, say, you know what, guys, there's a lot of good. Start focusing on that and watch that multiply.
Nice. Do we have any questions? We have one question, Dr. Moira?
Thanks. So I want to bring up a little different perspective. For some of you know, I'm a doctor, so I look at things from a holistic, more scientific perspective. So if we were to think about the body as a whole, as systems, and it has organs and cells, and it all has to cooperate together for there to be health. Well, some of the cells just decide, well, I'm just going to take over and I'm going to keep producing myself. And so they stop collaborating. And so what happens is the person gets sick. They develop a disease, and they either find balance again or they die. Now, if we were to think about the world as being the body of Source, think about it as all the countries are different organs. And the world works really well when we're collaborating, when we're working together. There's more harmony. But when we're not, there's conflict. And we either resolve the conflict or we get destructive and we create a war. And nature at its basic is in balance. If there's a storm, it comes back to balance. So my question tonight is, we've got 4 transformational leaders here. What can we do today to plant seeds for the evolution of consciousness, for more harmony and peace in humanity, and for the sustainment of our planet? There's a lot of resources here. What seeds could we plant?
Thank you, Dr. Moira. Who would like to start?
I love your analogy with the body. That's brilliant. That's really great. So I want to say that. I'm going to go back to what I said originally. I think for me, my response to that is getting really in touch to how the divine is moving, wants to unfold through me in terms of my ministry, in terms of who I am day to day. Be really in touch with that part that wants to move forward. And I do believe in synchronicity. I believe at every moment, in every space, the divine is happening. So as I can get in touch with that, then what comes forth through me is what it is I'm supposed to do. And whether that's in my family, it's in my community, it's in my neighborhood, but where I have to be connected with Source. And then for me, action comes from that connection. So
Dr. Moira, do you have some answers to your question?
Oh,
Because I would love to know. I love the whole thing that you framed up, and I would love to know what you have to say about it. You are a wise woman.
You know, I just think that there's I'm delighted that you all are here. I mean, you're 4 very powerful leaders. And it just seems like some seed could be planted, something could evolve from this. That it's not just about talking in a living room setting, but there's a reason you all are here. And I don't know exactly what those seeds are, but I do believe one thing, and that is there's an infinity of possibilities.
nice. Thank
So,
you.
may I?
Rivka, just hold it real close to your.
Okay. So I also like the analogy of the body. And something that Pierre Teilhard de Chardin says is he talked about something called holons. And what he meant by that is everything is complete within itself and part of something bigger than itself. An atom is complete within itself, and it's part of something called a molecule. And a molecule is complete within itself, but it's part of something called a cell. A cell is complete, and it's part of something called an organ, a body, a species, a planet, a solar system, a galaxy, a universe, but everything is interconnected to everything else. And at the level of where that imbalance may show up, it ripples. Because creation is an ongoing process that we're smack in the middle of, and somehow or another, we have been invited to participate in the creation of it. So I'm aware of something I've read about called microdosing, or maybe it's also homeopathic treatments that you work small and heal that thing. Dr. Holmes says we see the condition on the outside and we heal it on the inside as practitioners. And so, what seeds can we plant? I think the first thing is for myself to get my house in order, and then to work on the health of my community, and my community therefore, or I therefore, become kind of a homeopathic treatment. It doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot. And I think in terms of the stories of both the Buddha and Jesus, of the disciples of both of those teachers, and people would come up and say, what is it about you? And their answers were the same. Come and see, come and see, come and see. And I think that's it. When we are in the presence of someone who is in balance, we want to be with them because there's a resonance to that. And if I can be in harmony with my own beingness, then I'm able to be a conduit of harmony within my family and my community. And that is very, very powerful on a healing level.
Good. Christian.
Yeah, nice. Something else Pierre de Chardin said that really sticks with me, and that is joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. And so what I do, Moira, is that is really what brings me back to the homeostasis, to that place of balance in the totality of the system. And sometimes when there is that overgrowth that you're talking about, that cancerous cell in the body or on the planet, Bruce Lipton is the one who first introduced this to me, but the white blood cells are really the warrior class. They're the ones that need to go in and do what it needs to do to eradicate and eliminate that. And so on a planetary level, we have some things that go on that try to take care of those cancerous places, and their approach does not feel good inside of me, but I try to remember that sometimes there's something in the body that can't continue if we're going to be working as one planetary family, and I have got to trust and do my prayers and not necessarily say, hey, I'm for this, but I have got to know and pray for the peace and the wholeness and the wonderful interconnectedness of the body working together in its expression. And so when I see things that seem contrary to what I think should be happening on the planet or within my body, I got to continue to go back to know, and what I am able to contribute is to speak it, to share it, to come to places like that and remind us, because there is an emerging consciousness that is taking place on our planet right now that is extremely beautiful and wonderful. You know, we may not have the numbers that Ernest Holmes professed that we should have by a certain age, but what we do have that he didn't see even is the profusion of the spiritual truths that we speak that are proliferating in the books, in the shows, in the stories, in the news, in people's lives. I can remember when we were demonized by the fundamentalists on TV, and now they're stealing our stuff and saying, you know, do this is what will heal the planet and change your life, you know. And so what we're working with are spiritual truths that are trans-denominational, and if we can let go of thinking it has to come from my place and recognize, you know what, our place is what's going on, our message is far bigger than any mega church that is going on. And this new organ and this new consciousness, this new country is emerging, and it doesn't have to look like it's coming for me. What it has to happen is for me to recognize that it's happening now.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
And I was just thinking of, hold on a second. There is a quotation from the movie Conclave, the Guy and I have talked about a couple of times, and it helped me if I get this wrong, Guy. If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery and therefore no reason for faith. Yeah.
You want to say that again?
Yes. If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery and therefore no reason for faith or no need for faith. And when I look at or think on a daily level as I'm watching the news, what is mine to do? It's to stand in faith, the things that have been said here about the power of spirit and the unfolding of the right. Of course, that's what I think is right. But the unfolding of the truth. My prayer these days is about the love intelligence of spirit moving through all things. That love is our connection with each other, our oneness with each other, and our self-givingness. You know, love is the givingness of God to creation, is what Ernest Holmes said, self-givingness of God. And the intelligence is knowing the divine wisdom that moves through all things. So I keep seeing love and intelligence coming together, moving. And the election results that happened just recently were a little glimmer of that to me, of results of love and intelligence coming together. So thank you. So I guess what I'm wanting to say to you is it's back to the calling, and what's the deep thing that you are being called to stand as a representative of in the world, because that's going to help change everything that we've got going on.
And I think there's a struggle in that sometimes too. Going back to the conclave, but you know, I think, you know, something probably, and maybe they got that from Paul Tillich. Paul Tillich was a public theologian in the late 50s, and he made the statement. He says the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty, because certainty operates as a defense against doubt, and that a healthy faith should create space for doubt to be there, because it's when we doubt that we question and we grow and we open ourselves. And I think, you know, if I was to offer a critique on our teaching, or maybe my interpretation of our teaching, is we really push for certainty, and there's something humbling about being in the question or the mystery. Nice. and being in there, you know, you know, I have to probably create a 12-step for social media, because I can't watch it or read it. Lately, I've been just doing like Substack, and that's kind of like an alcoholic saying I only drink French wine. You know, it's it's still lethal. But it's too easy to be engaged in the appearance of it. And there's something about the mystery. And maybe as we as a teaching mature, we create more space for people to feel safe in the mystery.
Good. Do we have more questions right now? I'm going to, Jess, while you're getting to them, yes, I am going to ask, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I wanted to know what you are most hopeful, optimistic, or excited about right now. Don't all go at once.
My grandson,
That's cool.
2.5 months
That's cool.
old. Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that we're here together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about what's going on the planet. I mean, there are more people spiritually engaged than ever before. You know, our social media has got people connected on that level if they were choosing to tune into that. I'm excited about the communication that is going on. I'm excited about the way in which these spiritual ideas are being delivered. I mean, people are going to these virtual retreats, spending all day in a zone, going somewhere that they had never been able to experience before. The explosion of retreat centers and the depth of communication, the people that are leading on, let's say, podcasts that people listen to. Like the number one podcast right now is the telepathy tapes. And it's this communication between two people that goes back to the time Guy was talking about. Before there was a language, people were communing, connecting, you know, practicing their spirituality. I am excited about the ease in which the message is able to get out there to anybody. It's like having airwaves before they were regulated, and it's being dropped. The messages are showing up in mass media all over the place, and so maybe many people are looking not there, but you know, it's right there next to it, so those that are available to it. And so people can listen together. You know, you can watch it, you can experience it, you can go to it. And one of the things that is evolving on the spiritual side is the evolution of our understanding of spirit. Like meditation, when I first got into it, like Shakti Gawain was doing meditation where she would take you on these guided trips, and it was fabulous, and you would talk to the deer and listen to the river babble and give you messages. But now we have emerged to that place. You got Dr. Michael Beckwith, who's taken us on visioning, which is an old Bible thing, lowly listening, but you know, revolutionized it, where people just sit and listen. You can do the Joe Dispenza stuff where you go nowhere, no place, no thing, and go, wow, and you come back and you start growing organs again. You know, there are things that are going on that are wonderful on this planet. I think this is heaven on earth. It is Eden, and it is a time in which good is happening, and joy is once again recalibrating as the main frequency for all of us. So I'm very excited with what's taking place right now.
Yeah. Thank you. I have to agree with you. I just got back from Dr. Joe Dispenza in Orlando a week with him, and the amount of 20 and 30-year-olds that were there, that they made up for 60-70%. And it was, I think it shocked them where they brought together an impromptu meeting for 18 to 28-year-olds because they were just seeing like what's going on here. I felt really old, but you know, I was happy. I was super happy about that. So anybody else excited?
So Teilhard says, trust the long work of God. The long work of God. You know, and he speaks of epochs. If we look at evolution and where things are, things take time. And I get distracted by the immediate. And I think, like I said before, what gives me hope, and this is going to sound very, very funny, but what gives me hope is the fact that I don't know. That I don't know. And nobody does, really. And what gives me hope is that there is something at work that is greater than my perception of it. You know, Emma Curtis Hopkins talks about not being deceived by the appearance of things. And she also talks about something that I think is really interesting. She talks about how, and I remember this in my early days as a practitioner, that when you treat for something, all of a sudden it's like the opposite thing shows up, and it's like, what the, I'm treating for prosperity and I just got fired. I'm treating for health and I just got sick. I'm treating for love and I just got dumped. This isn't making sense. But it does, because the old paradigm will never, it does not have what is necessary for the thing that we have called forth. And what I would say is our present late stage colonial, industrialized capitalism is not going to bring us the thing that we desire. Plato says that the soul is erotic. And what he means by that, I believe, is that there is in each of us a desire, a longing, and we recognize it and we know it, and it's deep within us. And we can't, I can't imagine how the system that is set up now is going to be able to provide this idea where forgiveness is the norm, a world that works for all living beings, this idea. And so something passes, and I kind of want to go one thing, I don't want to dominate this thing, but I just kind of going back to Dr. Moira too, is something that Rudolf Steiner talked about, is that when we get sick, it's and I'm speaking about this metaphorically, but when we get sick, that often what is happening is that we are releasing past karma, which is why after you get sick you feel so good when you're not sick, right? Because you've released something, because the physical body is the most dense, and so it's the last body that karma passes through before it's released and dispersed. And maybe as a planet, what we're looking at here is all this collective karma, if we want to call it that, which is simply cause and effect, all this stuff that has been created in order for us globally to feel health has to pass through and be released. And at some point we'll realize, war is a collapse of the imagination. Colonialism is not going to give us the things that we desire. And power over love is never going to create the world that we long for.
Good. Thank you. Jess, questions? Where are we at? Brandon, do you still have your question?
We have one from
Oh, we
before.
have one back here? Okay. Get to you
Hi.
next.
I'm Tashi, and I have to wonder, in the olden days of the Aborigines or the yogis or the Indians, when they had just nature, how high spiritually they really went. So with our accelerated technology and corporate greed that's out there, I am hoping, I'm with Bob Marley, and I love dancing and art. Thanks for bringing it all here to Seaside as well. That a lot of this will break us through, and we're in an extreme tragedy. And thank you, Reverend Kathy, for talking about it. I'm not going to put my head in the sand and make myself feel really good by not knowing what's going on. No, I don't want to watch the news all day. It's too painful for most people. But I really believe if we come together as people and acknowledge what is going on, because I'm not young, and I have never seen anything like this go on ever before. And what's going on, people are turning around, especially the young people. And I wanted to know, as our leaders, what can we do with, yes, higher prayer, higher spiritual work, meditation, yoga, qigong, everything you could do. What else could we talk about or do that might just bring this world to a more peaceful place? Sorry for the intensity, but this is intense.
Bruce Lipton, his recent book, writes that let us not lose our biology. And what is happening in this technological age is you're talking about the individuals losing themselves in the technology, in the social media, in those kind of places, and all of a sudden that's where the energy goes, that's where the time goes, that's where the focus goes, and they get the latest, newest. Before long they'll go for the Neuralink and just hook their brain right up into the direct thing, and all of a sudden that what you're talking about, what we're focusing on, you go more in that direction. You begin to let go of the biology that allows you to experience the very things you were saying. What can we teach our kids? The meditation, the connection, the deeper sense of oneness with life, the place where the new ideas emerge. It is where the creativity comes. It's where spirit comes from. But if all of a sudden where we are putting our time, our energy, our resources in that technology, we are losing that cosmic connection. We've got to, it takes our creativity is something that we develop. You know, you come up with music, or you come up with writing, or some kind of a self-expression. It takes some time to flesh it out, to develop that skill, to paint that picture, to put a mural on the wall. But if all of a sudden we're no longer going there because we're going to that which feeds us, then we are being fed from this world as opposed from that inner kingdom. So one of the things I think that we could do, you know, with those young ones who are looking for this, who grew up in this as residents in the technology fields, is that to get them once again connecting. It's what's called eco spirituality. Go forest bathing. Go connecting once again in nature. It is allowing ourselves to return to the garden and to remember what those ancestors knew before there was language and when there was a clearer connection with the spirit. So.
Is it Tashi who spoke? Is that
Yes.
your name? Hi. Something that you said brought to mind. This to me, it's a little dark, but I think we're seeing very clearly the consequences of certain actions and behaviors, just as we do in our personal life. We're getting to see it, you know, on a community level, on a societal level, across the planet, and I think that's a wake up. I don't like that we're going through a wake up at this level, but we're certainly seeing things set in motion and what the results are. And I guess I'm just willing to, again, bear witness to that, understand what it means for me personally, but perhaps we can collectively see the better decisions and actions that need to be made.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your question. It's about getting in touch with ourselves and nature. I don't know what to do, but there is a divine intelligence within me that does. And to the degree that I could connect with that through nature, through prayer, through creativity, the many of the things that we're saying that you've said, that's the degree I get in touch with it, is that I'm informed what to do.
So going back to something that Christian said about, from quoting Terah, that joy is the evidence of God, is I was thinking about this movie that I saw years ago. It was called The Guitar. Anybody remember this movie? It's a fabulous movie.
It is.
So the premise of the movie is, in the first act, and this isn't a spoiler alert, but like in the first act, this woman finds out she has like stage 4 cancer, and she's like given X amount of months to live. She goes to work and she gets fired, and she comes home and her boyfriend dumps her. And she's like, well, there you go. And so she decides, I'm gonna learn how to play the guitar. And so she decides, I'm gonna live on my credit cards, and because I've only got a couple months left to go, and I'm just gonna play the guitar. And so she immerses herself in the car. I think she wanted to be in a rock band or something like that. I don't remember something, but it had something to do with her playing this guitar. And so she does this, and months and months have passed, and she goes to do something on the credit card, and she realizes that she has passed her credit, and the reason she has passed her credit is because she's passed her deadline of when she was supposed to be dead, and she was healed. And I think the takeaway for me was, to go back to what you're saying, is find your joy. That's the best thing you can do for the planet today, is find your joy. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh. No, it was the Dalai Lama who said that best thing that we can do for the planet is to be happy. Because if we're happy, it means there's one less soul on the planet that's suffering. So the greatest thing that any of us can do for the planet is to find our joy.
You know,
Yeah.
Julia Cameron, do you remember her? She's the woman that lived up in a tree for a year because they were going to chop it down. And she spoke at one of our United Center's conventions. And she's talking about living in a tree for a year to save this tree. And there were workmen down there, and they were really wanting to cut it down, but they wouldn't with her in it because it should injure. So then someone asked her, what is it that we should do? And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's going to tell us we need to go live in a tree, right? And she said, do what you love.
Yep.
Do what you love. That's how we'll save the planet. Do what you love.
It's the greatest act of defiance to this world. It is.
I would say Joe Dispenza says, we say change your thinking, change your life. Joe Dispenza is change your energy, change your life, and that the information is in the energy.
Yeah.
So when you're living your best life, that information is in your joy, is in your heart space, the information. We have another question. Go ahead. We have one right here.
I'm Robert. I think you said something great about the mystery. I think the key for me, I've been sober for a while and worked in an emergency room, and I saw everything with addiction. And there is something that gets me out of my selfish mind when I'm helping somebody else. And for anybody that's parented a child, when you see somebody get it, it's not possible not to be happy. And I really encourage people not to just talk about how terrible it is. People have been cut off on food stamps or homeless shelters are closed, but to do something about it. Volunteer. Don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. I sometimes hang out at the grocery store, and when people have no more money or their food stamp card, I put my credit card in and help them finish their groceries. And there are so many ways we can be joyful. I love reading Emma Curtis Hopkins that I was introduced to by Dr. Kathy, and she says, there is good for me and I ought to have it.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yes.
And you can do that when you look at, she wrote her books in the middle of the Great Depression. Women were shit, excuse my French. And yet she baptized more women to be ministers before they had the right to vote. So we can be a beacon of light by helping other people.
Thank you, Robert. That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Kathy, you want to comment?
I do. Thank you, Robert, for bringing Emma into the room. I just taught a class out of her book, Scientific Christian Mental Practice, and she goes through the story of creation any number of times in the book, from the beginning of the Hebrew Bible. And God said, let there be light. And I was thinking what a powerful affirmation that is, that we could be using all of the time. Let there be light. Speak it into situations, and then go about as a light as much as we can be. So I love Emma. She is absolutely absolute. Yes, not only there's good for me and I ought to have it, but also in my idea of good, there is no absence. So she's a great read for getting absolute about spiritual truth. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Who else? Do we have more questions? Oh.
Thank you. My name's Kristen, and I'm a special education teacher, and I meditate and do energy work and Sometimes I like to go to church for fun and see what different churches have to say. But at heart, I'm an environmentalist, and I've had this voice in my head, you know, when I'm sitting on the couch with my dogs on Sunday, you know, you should get out there and do beach cleanup, or you should go out there and do this. And if I listen to that voice, I feel much better. It's when I don't listen to that higher self voice. And so going along the lines of planting seeds, you know, I service Indigenous students and very poor population, a very poor population. And lately, a second grader and a kindergartner come to my class every day and ask if I have food. And I've been bringing food just for them, you know, and I don't have a lot of food at home and I need to get more. But and also, you know, when I see something, I see a hill or I see a mountain with a new development, like the one on 78, you know, I don't know why they chose those colors. But, you know, my heart pains for the wildlife and for Mother Earth. What tidbits do you have to help us put more action in that faith, in that goodness, in that light that we're harboring?
I just want to say, I appreciate that you're sitting on the couch and you feel a call and you go do it and you feel better. That's exactly it. I just want to say that, but Guy's going to talk. So.
I was actually going to encourage you to stay on the couch, but. And I say that because it's something that I struggle with as well. You know, I love this planet, and I'm fortunate to live in an area where there's a tremendous amount of beauty that I see off being, you know, rearranged in ways where there's loss. And, you know, Dr. Kathy talked about bearing witness. And I think part of bearing witness, for me, is the willingness to experience grief. Because there is loss. And grief is evidence of love. And it's, and then, while you're on the couch grieving, then come to a spiritual community that sees you and knows your name and loves you and witnesses you in the experience. Because I think the deception is that we're all alone. And the most important thing for us to know is that we're not. That we are seen. You know, what I say in my community almost every Sunday is that the truest thing about you is that you are known and seen and loved by a presence that knows your name, that is the very force of all creation. And it becomes personalized in the community of people that understand that. We're going through a change that we don't know where it's going to end up, and it's horrible, and there's loss. But, you know, that's going back to Tolkien. You know, Galadriel in Lothlorien says, you know, we fight the long defeat. And part of that is grieving what is passing, just like we grieve those whom we love when they pass.
Thank you.
I am, by the way, in my community, the life of the party.
All right, Jessica, you want to go over to Brandon?
I thought I would follow it up with that answer. So I think just give you a little bit of background with me, New Thought attracted me based on the power of healing. And what I see here in this audience is you have a lot of people that have probably had lived experiences and been through a lot of pain. And that's what brought us here. But we also have a younger generation that is coming up. And you mentioned the words dogma, hypocrisy. These are the things that we can transform, there is a balance between the inner and the outer. So as New Thought leaders, how do you transform and engage the youth?
Good question.
So that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. But I will say, to go on what Christian was talking about earlier, there is a spirituality happening on our planet right now. You know, it's the young kids that's saying, it's all good, or you're good, or the universe. You know, there's just an awareness of what I think we've been teaching in our centers that's happening in our youth. And so I have a sense that the youth don't feel like they need to come to a Sunday morning building inside and hear someone talk. Because I feel like there's something happening within on the planet, and the young people are hearing it and feeling it and knowing it. And so I don't feel that there's there's not a need for them to come and listen to us.
I think that has something to do with it. What is happening is there's more groups happening, and the youth are finding their affinities, and so they're finding their people around a common cause. And what I've noticed with the youth is they're in, they do their shtick, and they're out. You know, they go in, they save this tree, and then they go back with their people and they come up with the next project, and they are finding the small group activity. So I don't think it's that they're not connecting or it's only on the internet, but what is happening is they are finding common ground in which to take on the pieces in the world. And there's an interesting statistic in the fundamental churches. They're seeing the first growth with the demographics that they have seen in a long time, and that is the young ones that are coming back into the community. And it is often because of the pieces that they're taking on. And so, once again, I think the message is happening that they are feeling their connection with the ocean, with the trees, with one another. It's just not happening in a building on a regular basis, particularly if they've been in school for 5 days out of the week. They sure don't want to spend one of their 2 valuable days, if they're not playing soccer, little league, or anything else, hanging out in another classroom. They prefer to be with their people doing something to save a dolphin or whatever it is they're called. So I think their connectedness to the spiritual pulse of this planet is probably more in integrity with what is going on, as opposed to the dogmatic delivery, this is what God is, fear it, and come back next week.
I like that. And I guess what occurred for me was just an image of conversations happening with the question of what's true for you, and how, to these young people, what's true for you, how are you seeing it, how are you called, where is it that you're going, what do you want for our planet? I guess I'd like to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
There was years ago. We were looking, because as a minister, one of the things that I was told, the wisdom was that build a community where families belong, because when families invest in the life of a center, they'll participate, they'll be engaged, because people are looking for a place to raise their children. And I think that was probably true. I'm not sure that it is now. I don't really know. But there was an interesting research that was done in the mainline Christian churches with churches that had youth churches. And what they found was there was this incredibly high percentage of people who as children went to youth church, but when they came of age as adults, they couldn't relate to the Sunday church of the adults, and so they left. And so we saw this mass exodus of young people from churches because they were insulated from what was going on in the sanctuary on Sundays, doing their own thing. And when they came of age to go to this, they couldn't relate. And I think there's 2 things on that. One is we can be boring, and the other thing is, maybe as things are evolving and changing, our direction is, for me, because I first of all say I don't know, and for me, as a man who's in his early 70s, when I talk to young people, sometimes I feel like Rain Man. I don't know what to say or what to do,
You are a pretty smart guy.
But how do we create welcoming communities? Welcoming communities that are inclusive to everybody. And I would dare say, how do we create experiences in our communities that don't insulate but integrate? I grew up Roman Catholic, and there wasn't an option about church on Sunday. We're going. And here you are. And when I was restless in the pews, and I'm not saying that this was the right idea, but if I was restless in the pews, all I needed was my mom to give me a look, and I knew how one behaved in there. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but what is interesting in that is I still have that imagination of that very mystical ceremony that took place, that I saw and witnessed, that in some way I was part of. And so I think now it's how do we create welcoming communities? Yeah.
And didn't you go on to be a Jesuit?
I was not, no, I didn't become a Jesuit. Reverend Kevin here was the one who went the path of ministry. I got distracted. And I was going to be a Dominican.
Oh, Dominican.
Yeah, yes. Because they were the warriors against the Inquisition.
Jessica, can we get a microphone up to Callie?
Hello. Callie Sorensen. Between all of you, you have so many years and wisdom in the ministry. So based on what you've seen and what you've experienced, where do you see CSL in 10 years from now?
Who's starting? We want to know what vision you hold for the next generation. What qualities in the new leaders of CSL? Anything else?
What do I want
A reverend's wife silenced them all. Way to go, Callie. Thank you for that.
I want to say on behalf of our organization that it's an interesting time, I think. And I was at the center of leadership for a number of years in our organization. I'm not now. I'm with this gang, which is lovely. And it was very clear what we needed to do as an organization. We needed to change our name so that we weren't confused with Christian Science and Scientology anymore. We needed to create a vision and an organization or model that served us for another era rather than the past. And we needed to integrate the two branches of our organization, Religious Science International and United Church of Religious Science, because it was contradictory for a philosophy that preaches oneness to practice two-ness. And we did those things, and honestly, I've thought about this very question. It's for me right now, it's harder to see what's really wanted and needed. And maybe it's good that there's a big question mark right now. And maybe there's a question mark with everything we've talked about. Maybe there's a big question mark hanging over everything. And perhaps we're waiting for the revelation of what really the next steps are. I want to say, I love what Guy said about creating welcoming communities. And, for Kristen and Kevin and Guy to keep on keeping on and creating the work that they're doing. And I would say that our ministers are doing this work, all of our ministers in our organization, and that's what they're seeking to do. I don't know the answer to the question, but thank you for asking it, and I will continue to think about it.
And Dr. Kathy Hearn was the community spiritual leader of a global movement for over a decade and did exactly the things that she said they were attempting to do. And she merged the two organizations and then took one of the highest steps ones could do and let the other community spiritual leader, or actually was a president at that time, was not even that, and she stepped aside and allowed her lead position to be absorbed into the leadership of just one individual instead of two. And so she is the one who stepped away from that role, empowering the next generation and the next iteration of our movement. It's powerful.
And there's wisdom in that.
Yeah, I just want to say, just to be clear on the history, Christian was our first spiritual leader, so
Yes.
I stepped into his very large shoes after that. So I want to acknowledge, let's acknowledge Christian.
Yeah, for that. And I remember I was new in ministry when that happened. Yeah. I think that going to what Dr. Cathy was saying, that to maybe answer your question is I would say three things on this. First of all, for myself, as I sit with that question, maybe it isn't ours to do. Meaning, there is something about graciously letting those who are coming after to empower them that's theirs to do. And what mine is to do is to to kind of keep the lights on for them to step into it, and then we graciously step back. When I was a kid, I saw a film that scared me so much, it scares me today. And it was called Death of a Salesman. Because it was about someone who was trying to stay on. It's like Death in Venice, right? It's staying on when your time of relevance is passing. And that doesn't mean that we don't become wisdom keepers and that there's not a place for us. I'm not saying that at all, but there's also a time where we begin to recognize there is the people that are younger than us and the children that are growing up today are their skill set, their mindset, how they perceive, their imagination is very different from mine. And it's maybe the best thing that I can do is graciously do that. If someone was to ask me what they should do, and I always have ideas. My thought would be because I see this in other organizations I belong in, is that there's a collapsing happening. There's a diminishing that is happening, and call it right sizing, call it whatever you want, but something is happening, and we're facing this, and maybe what this looks like is that we reach out to other new thought teachings and find common ground and consolidate. We have buildings, we have pulpits, we have ministers, but maybe I remember Wendy Craig Purcell saying this, that maybe what we say is, that we are all part of a new thought religion. And there are denominations with that. I am New Thought, and I happen to be Unity. I'm New Thought, and I happen to be CSL. I'm New Thought, I happen to be Divine Science. But there's enough commonality that we can merge and use our resources together, and yet create enough space for individual expressions in that.
Callie, is a great question. And, when you asked it, my mind went completely blank. No answer. And I think between what Guy said and Kathy said, I had a hit as to why. Because it's not mine to do. It's another group. I feel where I'm called, I'm provided for. I don't think I'm called there. So I don't know. But let's all pray that some people do know.
And I would say that there is an emphasis on global expansion right now, and science of mind getting out there, and it's happening. And I think that's what we'll see more of.
Good question. Yeah. But I think Guy, really hit it for me. It isn't necessarily ours to do, but what is ours to do, we can take the lesson from our ancestors, the indigenous first people of our nation here, and that is they had some that were just I don't know if they were called the peacekeepers, but their sole responsibility was to hold that high watch, to hold the vision, to hold that spiritual connection with the Mother Earth, with Father Sky. And so when there was wars and when there was battle and when there was sickness and there was disease, their job was not to get involved with any of those other things. They were to hold as genocide was practiced, and they are still sitting there. Those elders, young ones, are there to hold the truth of that pure expression of spirit in their particular unique expression, and the time will come for that to emerge. And I almost feel that we're in that place, that we're holding, I don't want to say earnest position because it's a spiritual truth, but you know what is going on is, Kat said, the other continents are getting hits, just ordaining ministers in Mexico, in Central America, South America, in Europe. So it is expanding out. But while it's going on here, I think maybe what we're doing right now is just trying to keep us occupied and busy. I mean, our movement has gone very strong into social activism, which is beautiful, and it has its place, but you're cutting off half the other people that are on the other side. Now, we are out there taking social active positions, which have a beautiful place, but yet we've got a whole other people that we are pushing away because of that. There has got to be a unifying spiritual principle, and for those of us that are able to say, I know that's it, and it's emerging, and look here and look there, it begins to be, what it is I am doing while I'm doing nothing.
Thank you. Thank you, Callie. So I am the timekeeper as well, and so do I have any more burning questions? All right, I'm going to take one. All right, one more, Brad. Sorry, we'll get one more real quick though. Nothing lengthy.
Why hasn't Centers for Spiritual Living embraced process theology as a number of other spiritual denominations have? There are rabbis that are involved in process theology. There are Catholic priests involved in process theology. There are Protestant ministers. There are Islamic imams. But I don't seem to find much process theology being talked about or discussed or taught. And I really feel in my heart that when we talk about thought equals creation, that is what Whitehead was talking about and what Cobb talks about. And I think, and there's other, Bernardo, who lives in Netherlands. I mean, there's a bunch of people who basically say thought equals creation. Creation comes from thought. And yet we don't seem to be connecting with them.
Yeah.
Who wants to take on that? Thank you.
So I consider myself a student of process theology. 2 weeks ago, I was at a spiritual retreat that I go to every year that is primarily, I've been going to it since 2016, that is members of the academic that come together. It's called Theology Beer Camp. And it's, it's a bunch of nerds. And I can speak personally that several years ago, I went through a personal deconstruction in New Thought. It was not providing answers for questions I was struggling with. And I discovered the work of Whitehead and Cobb and Catherine Keller and others that kind of led me there. I think that, when I said that, I think that there is room for us to grow. I think as an organization, it would benefit us to allow ourselves to be exposed and perhaps mentored by some of the thinkers in this particular direction, personally.
Thank you. And one more. Jessica's bringing the mic to you.
There you go.
Oh, here, Christian. We got Christians here.
Here you go.
Thank you. My name is Fran, And I came today is the first time that I've been here.
Thank you.
So my question goes back to a few remarks that were made. And one response to a question was, find your joy. So I'm thinking, if all the good people are finding their joy, what are the evil people going to be able to do if we're no longer concentrating on finding the evil and routing it out? That's my question.
Thank you. They're all looking at you.
I don't think I heard the question correctly.
So, Dr. Christian, I do remember the monks having a similar question that you answered beautifully.
I don't remember the answer at all.
I
See,
do.
I'm in the moment. But I do know what Ernest said. He didn't deny that there was evil in the world, but that is a human condition. And what I would like to do is be able to raise my level of consciousness so that is not the world in which I am living in. I think there will always be different memes or different energetic levels in which people will be. There will always be bottom feeders, and there will always be those operating at the different color or the different level. And so what we as the joyous individuals is, as we raise our vibratory frequency, we begin to operate in a different plane. We begin to operate in a different realm. And it's not as if we're trying to overcome evil, but rather we are living in a space where it cannot operate. It cannot match that. It gets left in the place where it functions and does its thing and provides the lessons and the soul evolution, and those who are part of their classroom and have that in their life will continue to be there. But what we can work on is solely ourselves, not anybody else. And as I begin to live at that God vibration, there can no longer be evil in that realm, because there is not God and other. There is not God and me. All that I am is spirit, and what spirit sees is the beauty, the blessings, the light, and the life. And those other aspects are part of the physical creation, but not the world in which I am living in. And so as we work within our own consciousness, we are there's always going to be sharks in the ocean, but they haven't bit me yet. So, it's where we live.
Thank you. All right, I am going to end this evening asking each one of you to send us off with a blessing or intention that you would like to leave with our audience tonight and for our world at this time.
Let there be light in what you do, what you say, what you think, what you know, and what you practice.
Thank you.
Do what you love.
Good.
May we be surprised. May we be filled with wonder and awe. And may it bring us to a sense of reverence. And may that reverence call us into service.
May you know stillness in the midst of storms. May you know courage in the midst of the unknown. May you experience expansive joy on your path in this world. May your heart always be open. May your presence always be a lighthouse, a beacon of light for those that are seeking. So go gently. Go boldly, but always remember you're part of the vast, beautiful becoming.
Thank you very much. Can we give these four a round of applause? Yes? Thank you so much. Good job, guys.